This is Renewing Faith Radio with Pastor Jason Gold of Regeneration Calvary Chapel in Sandpoint, Idaho.
In your presence, darkness hides.
Turn your life over for righteousness. And so Paul is totally identifying with sinful man. And we all fall short of the glory of God. But we need to determine within our hearts who we're going to serve. And here he says, now present your members as slaves of righteousness for holiness. The things that you do, your members, your phalanges, your fingers and your hands and your feet, that we are to be the hands and feet of Christ.
On the cross it was done.
The Bible tells us that we cannot serve two masters. The world we live in proves that that is true. Balancing life, hobbies, and duties is hard enough, let alone bringing into the conversation things that rule our lives. In today's message, Pastor Jason will encourage you to answer the questions: who are you serving? Who is Lord over your life? Are you allowing the world to influence your choices and determine who you are? Or are you allowing God to rule and reign and make you a useful disciple? Now turn in your Bible to the book of Exodus chapter 9. As Pastor Jason begins his message, God's plan prevails.
One thing I long for, and I will seek.
If you would please open up your Bibles to Exodus chapter 9. Exodus chapter 9. I sought out to go through 3 chapters tonight. I didn't make it. So I'm hoping to get through 2. Because some of this is kind of, it's narrative, it's story. And so it kind of speaks for itself. But as introduction, we are coming upon the 5th plague that falls upon Egypt. And as we look at these judgments or these plagues that are being poured out, it's important for us to understand what the Lord is doing. Not only is the Lord bringing correction to Pharaoh and judgment coming upon him, but also against their gods, because they had many deities. And every single one of these plagues has something to do with false gods. Numbers 33 verse 4 says, "For the Egyptians were bearing all their firstborn, whom the Lord had killed among them. Also on their gods the Lord had executed judgments." So their God he's doing a purpose. And it's not only judging the land of Egypt, but judging all those false gods that, hey, what can your God do against me? And that's just the nature of humanity is always looking for some type of something to worship. And if it's not the Lord, then it's going to be the government. It's going to be, we see all this worship of the medical field and whatever the CDC says. If those people, it's just this conditioning and people just falling into place, and it's all to gain control. And that is what power does. And Pharaoh, he had all these false gods in place, and these people were very submitted to him. And the Lord, Pharaoh is being a tyrant to the children of Israel. And so the first plague, as you know, turned water into blood. And so it was because they worshiped the Nile. And so the Lord was just going to nip that in the bud. And so they had blooded, the river was blooded for 7 days. That's a long time. And so things started to die. And you think about 7 days and them panicking, trying to find water. And so then the second plague, Moses called out the frogs from the Nile. And so it was frogs overwhelmed every home. Every frog would be in the bed. Frogs would be in the oven. And, some people would be like, well, you just cook them if they're in the oven. But if they're in your bed, that'd be, So my mom, she lives around her house is right on this little lake pond thing. And these frogs ribbit really loud. And can you imagine frogs in your bed? Ribbit, ribbit. But it's like your whole bed's full of them. You got to move them, and there's a ribbit, 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 ribbit. So judging these frogs, well, there was a female deity with a frog head on it. And so again, the Lord is judging this frog god, and this frog god had a body of a woman. And then there was the third plague that came without warning, and it was Moses. He touches the dust of the earth, and it turns into lice. And the word lice, the Hebrew word used means to dig. So it's thought that it's actually like fleas or ticks. So you can imagine people being swarmed with fleas and ticks and what that would look like. You got them all over you. I had a dog. Her name was Zephyr, and she was a fantastic dog. But we lived in Norco, California, and Zephyr did great there. But then we moved into Annisline, California, and the backyard was flea infested. So much so that Zephyr started to kind of eat herself trying to get rid of the fleas. And so we ended up having to put her down. But all to say is, me having seen that and then hearing about these fleas or ticks consuming the body and just what that would be like, that'd be horrible. This was also, the people of Egypt, they worshiped their soil, and it was the god Geb. And so this was a judgment upon that god. And then there was the fourth plague, which was a mixture of flying insects. And so because they worshipped the insects, there was this beetle that they had this deity, and it was the head of a beetle. And so the Lord was just like, okay, I'm going to show myself over this, and I have complete control over every flying thing, including the beetles. And then there's the fifth plague, which brings us to chapter 9, verse 1. It says, Then the Lord said to Moses, Go into Pharaoh and tell him, Thus says the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. So this verse right here gives us some insight to our relationship with God. Because it says, Let my people go, that they might serve me. So God is the deliverer, and he delivers for a purpose. What is that purpose? To serve. We're all serving something, right? We are either serving our flesh, we're either a slave to the things of this world, or we are a slave for righteousness. And we all know what it's like when we are about the Lord's business. And we're just doing the right things because we love God. We want to walk in obedience. And so here the Lord says to Moses to tell Pharaoh, Let my people go that they may serve me. So any of us that have had a type of past and God has delivered us, we want to serve. The person forgiven much loves much. And that's just the condition of the heart. When somebody forgives you and they literally don't bring it up anymore, whatever it is, it's not that you're indebted to them, but you really appreciate the friendship or the relationship. And so the Christian life, when we think about being set free, if we're putting Jesus first, then we're not spending time on ourselves. We don't put ourselves necessarily first. Romans 6:18 says, And having been set free from sin, you became slaves of righteousness. I love that. Having been set free from sin, you have become slaves of righteousness. So you have to self-evaluate whether or not you have really turned over or opened up every closet in your life, in your heart. Those things that might enslave you. It could be materialism. It could be bitterness. It could be hatred. It could be unforgiveness. Those things will eat your lunch. And it said, actually, my father-in-law, he's been fighting CLL, which is chronic leukemia, lymphocytic leukemia. And so he's been fighting that for years. And in his research, because he's done homeopathic and he's done modern medicine, in his research, he has found that roots of bitterness and hatred and unforgiveness are a cause for cancer. It will literally eat you from the inside out. And so, how do we do it? Well, we watch what Jesus did. He laid down his life. That's what he did. He died to himself. And I'm not saying every cause of cancer is because of bitterness and hatred. It's just something that he found in his research. And that, we are to be slaves of righteousness. In verse 19 of Romans 6, he says, I speak in human terms because of the weakness of your flesh. For just as you have presented your members as slaves of uncleanness and lawlessness leading to more lawlessness, now present your members as slaves of righteousness for holiness. So he's saying, look, I get it. I get it in our flesh, we're weak. But turn your life over for righteousness. And so Paul is totally identifying with sinful man, that we all fall short of the glory of God. But we need to determine within our hearts who we're going to serve. And here he says, now present your members as slaves of righteousness for holiness. The things that you do, your members, your phalanges, your fingers and your hands and your feet, that we are to be the hands and feet of Christ. So now verse 2, it says, for if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, behold, the hand of the Lord will be on your cattle in the field, on the horses and on the donkeys, on the camels, on oxen and on the sheep, a very severe pestilence. So we don't necessarily know what this plague is, but we do know it's severe because it says so, a severe, very severe. So this is a plague that brings death upon these animals. Now think about, they didn't have cars back then. They didn't have tractors. So these animals, it's their vehicles. It's how they would do agriculture. It was part of their economy. And so when you think about taking away the machinery to be able to do agricultural deeds, that's a big blow. And so verse 4, it says, and the Lord will make a difference between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so nothing shall die of all that belongs to the children of Israel. So you think about that they're of all the livestock that was wiped out previously, now this is another blow. And so you think of all the livestock that is being taken out, it would be as if the stock market crashed, where people are investing their resources, and everything just crashed. You couldn't do anything anymore. And then it says that there was a separation between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt. So in Goshen, the livestock, they're not being touched. So the children of Israel, they're able to do what they need to do, and the Egyptians can't. And so God is really showing himself powerful, and this is a major blow to them. And this is a major blow to the god of Apis, which was the bull god, and then Hathor, which was known as the goddess of love, beauty, and joy. So beautiful that this deity, this little god, was so beautiful, it looked like a cow. Maybe like a piece of filet mignon. Now, if it was a piece of filet mignon, then that would be more tempting. But it is symbolic here that, man can get all caught up in all of our achievements, all of our ways of doing things. We could take for granted our vehicles. You could take for granted your tires. For several weeks, one of our tail lights was flickering, just going nuts. And so I didn't know if there was a short going on, but there was a crack in it, and then I noticed there was water in it. So I Googled how to replace my tail light, and it's so expensive, like $600 for a tail light. So I went to eBay and bought a used one, and installed it, and that went away. And so, but I got pulled over because of that tail light. Actually, I got pulled over first for my registration. And then the next night, I got pulled over for my tail light from the same cop. But when I got pulled over for my registration, I went home, registered my vehicle, and it was like a month. It was like December, and we were in January or something. And so I got pulled over by the same cop, and he comes up. I just start smiling. And I just go, I got my registration. He goes, yeah, I know. Your light's flickering. I go, I know. And he gave me some recommendations of some mechanics. Anyway, I was like, I wonder if it's that crack. All I'll have to say is we take for granted the things that, like the chairs that you're sitting in. We just take for granted that they're going to hold us up. So we were in Honduras on a missions trip, and it was my whole family. We got to go, and we visited this church, and we walked in. In Honduras, it's the villages where what we were doing is we were putting down concrete floors because they had all dirt floors and in the communities. But then you go into the village, and they actually had a nice church, and the floors were this really shiny marble. Like, this is really nice. And they had these, those plastic chairs. Well, on a really shiny marble, there's no grip on the feet of these chairs. And so I sit in these chairs, and these chairs in Honduras must have been made in China because they're so just like flimsy. So I sat in, I'm putting like a lot of my weight on my legs, just not sitting. And then I don't know, I was like looking at my wife, I had my hands on my knees, and I'm just kind of looking at her like, I don't feel comfortable in this chair. Then all of a sudden, just like a deer going out on ice, just whoosh, the chair exploded. And so I hit the ground right in service. Everybody turns around. Nobody's like, are you okay? They're just like, ah, laughing at me. And so I go stand in the back, and the pastor, he comes up, and he has another chair, exactly the same chair. He goes, this one's better. I'm like, I'm good, I'll stand. All to say, we take things for granted, right? And so, yeah, these things that the Lord is dealing with is they're gods. Cars can be a god to you. Our dwelling places can be a god. Our vacations can be a god. We could put a spouse as a little god. There's so many things that we can esteem above the Lord. And God is a jealous God. And so let's not do that. Now, verse 5, it says, then the Lord appointed a set time, saying, tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land. So the Lord did this thing on the next day, and all the livestock of Egypt died, but the livestock of the children of Israel, not one died. Then Pharaoh sent, and indeed not even one of the livestock of the Israelites was dead, but the heart of Pharaoh became hard, and he did not let the people go. So what we see here is a separation between what man is doing and what God is doing. God's always at work, and man's always striving against God. And yet we want to be on the right side, do we not? And so we need to, Egypt is a symbol of the world and everything that the world has to offer. And this world has a lot to offer. Not everything's bad, but a good thing can become a bad thing if it's not the best thing. And so we really need to focus on doing things for the Lord, because truly it's only the things for the Lord that's going to last. Verse 8, it says, so the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take for yourself handfuls of ashes from a furnace, and let Moses scatter it toward the heavens in the sight of Pharaoh. So this is the introduction to now the sixth plague, and it's the boils. And so it's interesting that he's using these ashes, and it says, and it will become fine dust in all the land of Egypt, and it will cause boils that break out in sores on man and beast throughout all the land. Interestingly, some think, because if you, anthrax will also, if it touches your skin and gets into your pores, it will create boils. And so some commentators think that this was like, the dust, it's all airborne, and it's getting on, it's on the surfaces and causing these boils. It's just like nasty, like oozing, like pussy, oozing, gross boils. In verse 10, it says, then they took ashes from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses scattered them toward heaven, and they caused boils that break out in sores on man and beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because the magicians now have boils. And so they can't do it because of the boils. For the boils were on the magicians and on all the Egyptians. So here they are, the Lord is dealing with the God that they worshiped, the God of healing. And so now the magicians, everything that they would do to fabricate healing wasn't working. And so again, God is showing his power. He's showing his might. That look, I'm in control. You can just do everything that you think that you can do, and it's going to be to no avail. And so the last plague of the animals was the plague of the economy. And so now it's their health. So their economy is gone, and now their health is gone. You think about a curse on a land. The economy's gone and their health is gone. And you kind of look at what is going around worldwide. Economies are falling apart. And health. There's a new article that was, why are the mid-age, it's supposed to be the healthy age, people dying more rapidly, and it has nothing to do with COVID. And so, interesting statistic is, amongst teenagers, there was 1 out of 100,000. So one teenager out of 100,000 teenagers that had COVID passed away. But during the lockdowns, and that was all during the lockdowns, but during the lockdowns, 13 teenagers out of 100,000 teenagers died because of suicide. So the lockdowns were worse than COVID. And so you look at these judgments that are coming upon Egypt, and United States is not in the end times as far as the tribulation. There's like no mention. And in the early years, when the United States was a powerhouse, you'd be like, what's that even going to look like? How does the United States not even mentioned when the United States is the police of the nations? And now we just see how weak and vulnerable with bad leadership, what happens to the nation. And so then it's just kind of like, okay, prophetically, this is all lining up. And so is it frustrating? Yes. But if God is doing something, then I say, Lord, come quickly.
This has been Renewing Faith Radio with Pastor Jason Gold. We're in Exodus. This book is full of tense interactions between Moses and Pharaoh. It's chock full of plagues, signs, and miracles. God was showing himself mighty in the book of Exodus. He brought about multiple plagues, refuting all the Egyptian gods and their so-called powers. He parted the Red Sea in a miraculous feat of nature, all for the help and rescue of his people. He even led them by day with a massive cloud and a pillar of fire by night. How amazing and wonderful it would have been to see those signs and wonders. Yet, despite these amazing and awe-inspiring events, the Israelites were quick to forget all God had done. and how He had come through for them. This is human nature, isn't it? As soon as God shows Himself faithful, you're worried about the next thing. Oh, ye of little faith, right? What are you wrestling with today? Where are you seeing God come through for you? And are you willing to believe that He'll be there for you in the next trial? These are all good things to ponder as we go through the book of Exodus. If you're interested in hearing additional teachings in Exodus or any other book, we have those for you at renewingfaithradio.com. For any questions about this ministry, you can get them answered by reaching out to us at 208-557-9673. That's 208-557-WORD. Thanks for listening to this edition of Renewing Faith Radio.